So let me start by just kind of sharing a little bit about me. And if anybody wants to put them a question in the chat, go right ahead. You can also unmute yourself. This is pretty informal. So as I said, I want to start with an introduction. I come with a finance background. Actually, I come with an undergraduate psychology degree. I graduated with my degree and decided, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. So I literally had a degree that was worthless. And so for the next 15 years, 13-ish years, I instead decided to work in finance. I started off with the NASDAQ stock market. I did my MBA. I moved on from there to Ernst & Young. And there was one thing that was happening. As my career was going up and up and up, my confidence level started going down and down and down. And it got to the point where I was constantly worrying. I was constantly stressed. The constant message is I'm not doing good enough, or somehow or the other, I'm not enough in whatever it is that I was focusing on. And finally, I realized, it was after another 10 or 11-hour day at my office, I realized that if I continued down this path, I was going to do myself some real damage. I could either have a physical kind of breakdown, or I could have had an emotional breakdown. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it wasn't going to be good. So I decided that it was time for me to pick a healthier way for success, right? Everybody else in the world wasn't as stressed as I was, and they were doing well, at least some of them. So I wanted to understand what was the key to success that felt healthy. So now I've been doing my business for 10 years. Actually, April was my 10-year anniversary. And what I have learned right from the beginning was that it's all between what you think between your ears, basically. It's what you have within your ear, between your ears, your mindset, those emotions, those beliefs, your values, your attitude, right? That was what decided whether somebody was going to feel successful, which means they were going to be successful. So I'd like to just actually take a moment, and I'm going to ask everybody a question. And go ahead and, like I said, put this in the chat. Put your answer in the chat, okay? When you think about your behavior, right, your daily behavior, what percentage of your behavior do you think is based on analytical and logical decision-making? So put it in the chat, whatever you think the answer to that is. And I'll repeat the question one more time. What percent of your daily behavior is based on analytical and logical decision-making from 0 to 100%? Anybody has any guesses? Okay, so Laura, you think it's 30%. Sweta, you say 10 to 15%. Lauren, 50%. Wow, you guys are optimistic. Anybody else has any answers? All right, so let me tell you, 40%. So let me tell you what research says. No more than 15%, that's 15%, is based on logical and analytical decision-making. And you kind of saw that when I talked about my little story about Toastmasters, right? Because just because this guy had won before, my decisions that I wasn't going to win was purely emotional. I didn't know if he was as good as me or if I was worse than him, right? But I'd already made the decision that somehow I'm not going to win. And here's the kicker. When we get triggered, when we're having a bad day or something bad happens, it goes all the way down to 3%. That's how little our decision-making is based on logical and analytical thinking, right? And then when you look at the news outside, there's a fender bender, and all of a sudden there's a major altercation. In my opinion, it goes all the way down to 0, because in a matter of minutes, it becomes complete emotion. Does that make sense? Are you guys surprised by that? I'd be curious to know, does anybody feel like that was too high, too low, too anything? Or does it make sense? Surprised, but actually does make sense. Yeah, exactly. It does make sense when we like to think of ourselves as being very logical people. The truth is we're more emotion than we are logical.